Okay. Well, people still seem to be streaming in, so I put a few books in the chat box. The last one is the Anchor Bible, which is kind of my main go-to, at least in my limited library here in Palm Springs, in my home, that I go to prepare the text. And we've got a sound problem already with somebody. Maybe
Okay.
Madalena, you can figure out what the story is on that and who's. And then there's two other books that point to some of the undersides, darker sides of religion, which I would imagine might come up from time to time. So I'll give a brief introduction in just a moment. We still have some more people signing on, and I'm going to go to a gallery view just so we get a feeling for who's here. If you're able to show us your face and be with us, that's always preferable. We'd like to see and feel that we're having a conversation. I know it's not always possible. Some people are in different stages of putting on their makeup or getting out of bed, because we do have people from different parts of the world with us. Um, and some people like Richard, you never know with them when they turn off their camera what's going on. For those that are new, Richard is he's the butt of all jokes in this group, right? Unless do you want me to find somebody new, Richard? Because you've been doing it for a few years.
No, no, I'm practiced at it. Unless somebody wants to volunteer, I'm fine.
Okay.
I can always jump in the pond with the koi fish if it gets intense.
Okay. All right. This, of course, is very exciting. It's very exciting to bring together people from different geographical locations, bring together people of different faith traditions and religious upbringings, and various degrees of literary knowledge. Some folks in the group will be absolute novices when it comes to New Testament text, or in particular the book of the Acts of Apostles. Others will have been reading and studying this for 60, 70 years of their lives. Many of our readers might still look at the text um, in a face value way. I want to use the word naive, but not in a derogatory sense. In a way like, oh, well, that's the way it must have happened, and we'll try to make room for those folks as well. But the bottom line of this kind of educational approach, and we're doing education here, is a critical academic, hopefully with an eye also on spiritual connection, on social issues, kind of all over the place. But I think, we would like to keep our eyes on the text in an attempt to try to read what the text might have meant when it was written, or when it was developed or edited. And I hope that I was about to say Dr. Kinney, but why don't we all call each other by our first names? Please call me David, and that Steve might help us with, when it comes to the original versions of the text, what we know from scholarship. But the bottom line is, this framework of study is in a larger project called Dealing with Challenging Texts from the New Testament from an Anti-Semitic Point of View. And that came from a concern by some people out here in the California desert, the Jewish community, that anti-Semitism is still very much alive and breathing and a threat. I will say that I don't think in Or Hamidbar, that's our Jewish community here, of which many of the people here are members, that I don't think we felt as an organization anything, but individual members in their lives have certainly grown up with anti-Semitic threats to their well-being, to their life, to their peace of mind. And always in the background of what we do in Or Hamidbar is the state of Israel and Israelis and our ongoing relationship with them, and the fact that much according to many people today, not according to me, but according to many people today, anti-Zionist statements are also anti-Semitic. I don't know that we need to get into all those things, although I'm open to doing so if it's appropriate. But we may also have here people who feel very one-sided about the Israel-Palestine conflict on one side, either towards the Israelis being all legitimate or Palestinians being all legitimate, and that too is fine. I think we can all live here together in the same way that those that voted for one particular presidential candidate can live here together with those who voted for another one, because the basis of our talk together needs to be one of utmost respect, one of trying to clarify for ourselves what are our values without putting down the other person's values. How can we be right without the other person being wrong? And to really be open, genuinely open to wisdom from other places. Maimonides, the great rabbi of 12th century in Spain and then in Egypt, is famous for saying, one must accept the truth from wherever the truth comes. And it could be in other faith traditions that the same phrase is repeated in different languages, but I know it from Maimonides, from Rambam, and that has been one of the goals of my life. And that's, in a nutshell, why we are here today. So just one last word. Or Midbar is a small independent congregation, Jewish congregation in the desert of Southern California, Palm Springs mostly, but other places like Palm Desert, Cathedral City, Desert Hot Springs, Indio, Coachella is all part of our catchment area. We see about 150 different faces a month, individual faces a month. We do not have membership. We're not a membership model. There is a board because it's a 501c3, but the board is a very tight-knit group of people without committees that mostly allows me to go forward with my vision of what I think we might be able to do from a Jewish point of view, a spiritual Jewish point of view, which is to study, to worship, and to fix the world. We've been in existence for 3.5 years, and the people that live here or the people that are connected with Or Midbar from other places, not only around the United States but around the world. We have one of our people is from Mauritius, off the coast of Africa. We have Israelis that join us and Europeans that join us. Everybody is here for the purpose of enriching themselves through the venue of ongoing cross-pollination. And I think I've said enough for now, and I'd like to invite my friend and colleague, Dr. Stephen Kinney, to maybe just give some words of introduction.
Yeah, thanks, David. And greetings, everyone. This is a real honor and a privilege to have this chance to dive into this text with you. And David and I became fast friends through David's cousin in Fredericksburg, where I served in Episcopal church there in the 1990s. And I left in 98, did a PhD at University of Texas in educational psychology. I started as an Episcopal priest with that degree. I started a nonprofit called The Front Porch. And we had about a 10-year run, but the premise was dialogue. Oh, everything David just said, open dialogical conversation, which comes out for me out of a hermeneutic tradition that says we need to honor our perspective and put it out there. And then the degree to which the other receives it and lets it rattle around and think about it and then responds. Well, the condition is that other word penetrates long enough for us to really mull it over, and then we respond. And it's this back and forth dialogue, which I think the truth emerges between us in that process. And I can't think of a better way. I took the book of Acts of the apostles in a course. I was doing a graduate degree in Greek and New Testament at Union Well, at General Theological Seminary, the Episcopal Seminary in New York, I did that in '88. And most of my classes were at Union Theological Seminary and then across the street, Jewish Theological Seminary. And I took a class with Shai Cohen, a great Jewish scholar of the first century, and Robin Scroggs, who was the New Testament professor at Union Theological. It was half students from Jewish Theological and half students from Union across the street. And that's when I really started engaging in interfaith work at a deeper level that led me into all kinds of worlds. But most recently, I've been part of Interfaith Action of Central Texas. I was on their board. I served as their president one time and currently serve as their director of development. But it's through IACT, the interfaith group in Austin, that I've gotten to know folks like Ajit and Imam Islam on this line in particular. And just so you know, I had a carpal tunnel surgery last week. That's why we had to cancel or rearrange this. I apologize. I know we were set for last week, but also I've been involved with a couple of projects that have now been released. And this next week, I hope to invite personally a handful of other folks from my community to join us to enrich the matrix. And so today I asked David if we could just kind of introduce ourselves. And I know a lot of y'all know each other, but I was just hoping we could just make this an open-ended, what are the expectations? What are your thinking about this project that we're entering into? And then next week, maybe really dive deep into the text and get started. So I'm married. I have 3 kids. They're all in Austin. They're in their 20s. And yeah, that's enough.
Okay, I think we'll do it in such a way that I'll call on people, and then there won't be that uncomfortable silence before who's volunteering to speak. Batya, you just happen to be to the right of Steve. Would you mind just introducing yourself and perhaps what you're expecting to get out of this group?
Hi, my name is Batya Haas. I live in the Philadelphia, Pennsylvania area. I am curious. I just want to hear 2 different, well, I don't know if it's 2 different approaches so much as the dialogue between people of different faith traditions regarding an important book in the Christian canon. I am a Jewish person who is just open to hearing what other people have to say, although I'm secure in my own faith tradition.
Our common friend, Steve, and I, is my cousin Steve Sosland, and he and I have had many conversations about a word that apparently I made up. I thought it was a real word, but I made it up. And the word is multilogue. Now, dialogue, when you go back to the Greek, it doesn't mean die as in 2, it's die as in multiple, but in Hebrew, instead of du-siach, which is this direct translation of dialogue, we do say rav-siach, rav meaning many, so multilogue, and I bring that up in light of your words, Batya, that not only 2 attitudes here, right, but at least we have here Baha'i and we have Islam, and we have probably all sorts of shades of Christianity and Judaism here. So it'll never be just 2 sides, won't it? Right? I'm sure that's not what you meant, but so yeah, Imam.
Thank you for clarifying that. No, the more voices, the more we learn about other people and how they think and why.
Great. Yeah, Imam, min fadlak, if you could share with us. Just need you to unmute yourself first.
Shukran. Thank you, Rabbi David, Reverend Kenny. I'm very excited about this. It's, I think, something unique opportunity. First of all, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, in the name of God, most gracious, most merciful. I think a lot of people don't realize that Moses, peace be upon him, is the most repeated story in the Quran. And then Jesus, peace be upon him, giving glad tidings of the Prophet Muhammad, peace upon him. And so I know people may cherry pick revelation to prove their particular position theologically. So I'm looking forward to having something fresh with an approach that's different from my own particular theology, but maybe there are some points of agreement. So I look forward to participating, learning more, and going deeper. And I think I come here from Austin, Texas. I grew up in Austin. My parents came from Egypt. For me, the number one city is Mecca. Number 2 is Medina. Number 3 is Jerusalem. Number 4 is Austin. Austin, Texas. So I look forward to engaging all of you and community and respect.
Shukran jazilan. Ajit, would you introduce yourself?
Ajit, you're muted. You're still mute. There you go.
Oh, okay. Ajit Kiani, I now live in Austin. We moved here about 5 years ago because we have 2 grown children that live here. Children were okay, but grandchildren is what really brought us here. And we have 5 grandchildren from the age of 10 to 2. I have served in the past in Haifa, Israel, at the Baha'i World Center there, and I lived in Haifa for 2 years. And if I was to say my home nation, I think of Israel as my home country. I felt more at home in Israel than I felt almost anywhere else. I served for 5 years as a docent at the Holocaust Museum in Houston, and I still go back to Houston at least once a month. I have served on the board of directors of Interfaith Ministries for Greater Houston for 9 years. 6 of the years as board secretary and chair of the refugee committee, because we were an agency responsible for settling refugees in Houston. And for the last 5 years, I have served on the board of directors of IAC here in Austin. I really come at this because I feel one of the greatest illnesses this world has had over the last 2,000 years is anti-Semitism. And I want to see how y'all would get together and tackle the issue of anti-Semitism, which frankly springs from a Christian, has a Christian root to it. And I want to see how y'all would tackle anti-Semitism.
Oh, y'all. Are you
Y'all.
listening?
Yeah.
Are you listening?
I'm sorry?
Go ahead. No, I think somebody was unmuted, didn't know it. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. So I look forward to us being able to openly and candidly talk about anti-Semitism, the roots of anti-Semitism, and why for the last 2,000 years, anti-Semitism has been such a difficult and challenge. And this really, really comes from my work at the Holocaust Museum in Houston. I consider myself a Zionist.
Okay, thank you. Sue Spicer, would you like to share with us?
I come to the education, religious education very late. So now I'd like to study more things. It's very interesting. And it's, even though I'm an old lady, it's very interesting.
Not so old.
And Sid?
Yeah.
Sid, who's older?
I was raised Orthodox Jewish, and I'm right now absolutely Reformed Jewish. And I've not studied any of the New Testament at all until Rabbi David became my number one rabbi. And
Okay.
I'm looking forward to this very much.
And Sid and Sue are speaking to you from Palm Springs, but soon they'll be making their annual pilgrimage back to their homeland, somewhere in the middle of this country. I'm not really sure where it is, Michigan or someplace like that.
Michigan.
Steve, please share with us.
Hi, my name is Steve Carson. I grew up in Philadelphia. I'm a French pastry chef. I moved out to Los Angeles where I owned a French pastry chef bakery cafe for 40 years. I retired in January of 2019 and found myself at United Methodist Church. Never studied the Bible before in my life. And I started Bible study there, and I figured I might learn something. Well, I've learned a lot, and I've done an Interfaith Shabbat with Rabbi David, and I've been around Jewish people my whole life. I was a Jewish catering waiter. I worked for an Orthodox caterer in Los Angeles, Elite Catering, and so I've been around Jewish people my whole life. I've been around Muslim people. I love people. I love every faith. And so I love to see how we can all get together and love each other and become one in just being human beings and kindness and love with God.
Thank you, Steve. And you meant, of course, the United Methodist Church of Palm Springs, correct?
Right, correct. Yeah.
Okay, and also from Palm Springs, Richard Jeffrey.
Hi, my name is Richard Jeffrey. I grew up on Long Island, New York, and I was raised as in a conservative and then a Reform Jewish background. I come from a family that's multi-religious. I have Christian cousins and Jewish cousins. I was bar mitzvahed and then went on with my religious studies, but fell away from religion because I'm gay, and I felt unaccepted by the religious community. And then decades later, got involved with a Christian outreach. So I read the New Testament, but it didn't cure me of my gayness, and I just didn't feel it. I put it in the same box as Judaism. And then I got reintroduced to my religious beliefs. I think I was always religious because when I was young and younger, as a teenager, my family always thought I was going to go on to become a rabbi, which is kind of like absurd, but because I always went to the synagogue. In any case, I got back re-involved because my brother and sister-in-law, who are deeply religious, helped me through a crisis in my life, and I thought I would go to the synagogue to honor them, and discovered a female rabbi and a gay cantor, and I thought, well, something's changed in the 50 years I've been gone. And ever since then, I've been studying and involved. Rabbi David came to the community, and I think I appreciate very much his academic and intellectual approach to religion, because that's how I look at it. And so here we are today. I'm back involved.
Thank you, Richard. And Jean Paul, if you could unmute first.
Okay. My name is John Paul Hodgins. I grew up in a Baptist family, very fundamentalist. And I actually went to a Bible college, a Christian Bible college up in Toronto. And I had a faith crisis. So I left the religion altogether for about 40 years. I actually started attending a Reform congregation in Sugar Land for a period of time. And it got me back into studying the scriptures and looking at them. But what has changed in me a lot is the fact that I look at the scriptures. I try to understand them from the Jewish perspective first. And when I teach Sunday school classes or talk or whatever, I always go back and try to reach the Jewish meaning of the scriptures before I expound them, basically, because it's a Jewish book and it was written by Jews. And the anti-Semitism that happened within the church, we can't do anything about it back then, but I do my best to make sure that those people that I reach and talk to understand that this is a Jewish book and try to understand it as a Jewish book. I'm currently putting together a motorcycle ministry, actually, that focuses in on discipleship. So I'm trying to put that together right now and get it going. It's going to be an online ministry. Just as a point of reference, I actually lived in Austin for a number of years, actually Austin and Round Rock. And currently we're living in Galveston, and as of the 1st of July, we'll be up in Lubbock, Texas. So Texas here, there seems to be a number of Texans here. So.
Hey, thank you. Thank you, John Paul. Megan.
Wake
Right.
me up.
Jim and Terry, you're next.
I'm Megan. My last name's Feather. I am. I live in Carlsbad, California. I have 3 grown sons and 3 little grandsons and 1 big one. I am a Jew by choice. Everyone always looks at my name and think, what? But I am really interested in, I don't say I converted because I really didn't have any background in any religion in my family. I just came to Judaism and it fit. So it's really interesting to me to have that, what did you call it, multi-log, between different people, and also to read the, to hear about and understand the New Testament with an open mind versus I as a human being with any biases. I'm a psychotherapist, so I work with a lot of people of different faith traditions, which often, I'm old enough, I'm an old lady too, I'm old enough that that one's faith or one's grounding in faith is a big part of the psychotherapy I do. It doesn't have to be specific, but without a grounding in something bigger than yourself, we just go round and round and round in circles. So I need to know different perspectives and understand them. So that's all. Thanks.
Thank you, Megan. Jim?
All right, so we are Jim and Terry Loomis, currently in Michigan. And we were in Palm Springs from January through April, which is our normal time frame. And when we're there, then we're members of the United Methodist Church of Palm Springs. But we, from the time we met, have been talking about religion, because I grew up Catholic and he grew up Lutheran. And, you know, you always have that toss up of what do you become? And so we've transitioned through lots of different they're Protestant churches, but because we keep changing our denomination and our thoughts about religion, we have been studying and thinking about this for years and years. So taking the class with Rabbi David that we did in Palm Springs prompted us to continue this class and to learn as much as we can about this issue, but also just religion in general. Anything we can learn is great. And we have a son here in Michigan and a couple grandkids. We have a son in Pasadena with a couple of grandkids and another son in Hawaii with no grandkids there. So we have family all over. So that's what we travel. And when we travel, a lot of times going to different churches, we've been some interesting churches across the country. And there's always something to learn about any religion. So that's it.
Thank you. Did you want to add anything, Jim? Okay. Rita Claire, just need you to unmute first.
Wow. I was raised in a Jewish home without any knowledge of Judaism. At a very young age, I fell in love with my deceased husband now, who was Catholic Puerto Rican. So we ended up eloping and making a life for ourselves. However, when we started having children, we both felt a need for something more in our lives. So unfortunately, we chose a religion that was very controlling. However, we both felt it was a compromise. And the religion was Jehovah's Witnesses. And when my husband passed away, it gave me an opportunity to feel free to return to my roots. I met another gentleman whom I am married to now, whose wife was a Pentecostal minister and really was not totally sold on that idea either. So we were both open to investigate, and we started going to the temple, and then Rabbi Lazar came, and we were very, very impressed with his manner of teaching, and it answered a lot of questions for us. So we are very dedicated to learning as much as we can about not only Judaism, but other ways of thinking. And so here we are today.
Rita Claire, always with a good question. And Rita Claire's husband, Bill, is going through some challenging times from a health point of view. And we all want you to know that he is in our prayers. And before I call on our last two people, also our prayers, of course, are with the people of Texas, the people of this country, the people of the world in so many different ways. We're just reminded every day in a different direction. And so the Imam began by blessing our study with mentioning God's name and God, who is the merciful God, Al-Rahim. And in all of our faith traditions, there's the idea of imitating the deity, or different versions of that, and to be filled with rachamim, with mercy, with loving kindness. That has come up in so many of what you have said. I think it's the underlying text. And now probably the furthest participant from the east coast of Africa, off of the east coast of Africa, Corinne, if you could introduce yourself, please.
Yes, hi everyone. I'm happy to be with you. I'm Corinne. I'm in my mid-50s and I'm living in Mauritius, an island off the coast of Madagascar in the Indian Ocean. Being in a multicultural country where we have Christians, Jews, Buddhists, Hindus, Muslims, and Baha'i, and people from different parts of the world, mainly Africa, Asia, and Europe. We're a bit of a melting pot. My roots are from different backgrounds as well. So I've always felt that interfaith was the best approach, the best core answer for me. I was born and raised in a Catholic family, which is very religious, but my call has always been being a Jew. I always felt a Jew. I don't know in my ancestry if there is some lineage with Judaism, but that is what I always felt. And through Or Midbar, Rabbi David's class, I kept growing, I kept learning, I kept opening my mind to different perspectives and really enriching, really a big interaction with other people. And that made me grow on my journey to conversion to Judaism. And I feel that it is a great, very important part of my identity, of my personal growth. And I'm very thankful to be able to have a regular conversation with Rabbi David and some friends. Thank you.
Thank you, Corinne. Alan, are you there? And can you show us yourselves? You and Ron, perhaps, are you there in front of the computer? There you go. And just please unmute. And now go back to the picture. There you go.
Good morning. My name is Alan Levinson. I'm a resident of Cathedral City, part of the Coachella Valley. I love living in the desert. I've been here now for 13 years, having lived in Los Angeles my entire life. I didn't know I was Jewish until I was 9 years old. Both my mother and my father were refugees from Europe. They met in Los Angeles and got married in 1942. I came along in 1944, and religion was something that was never, ever discussed at home. My father was born in the Ukraine, and the irony today is that the area that he literally escaped from with his brothers and sisters in the year 1905 is one of the sites of a tremendous amount of horrific bloodshed going on today. My mother, her family was Austro-Hungarian, and again, did not have any connection with Jewish identity at all. When I found out as a boy what it meant to be a Jew, I took to it like it was the best thing that had ever happened to me. I was enrolled at Wilshire Boulevard Temple in their religious school. And I found from the time that I first started there in the 5th grade up until confirmation, which was in the 10th grade, I got a very solid background in Reform Jewish thinking. And this has stayed with me all my life. Now, I left practicing Judaism for quite a while I was interested in building a career and doing other things. However, without realizing the level of anti-Semitism that had existed even in a city like Los Angeles, all of the work that I ever did and all of the accomplishments that I had made in a career were all done in companies that were primarily headed by Jews. I was never, ever hired into a company that was not run by Jewish people. I didn't understand this until years afterwards, till I understood the incipient anti-Semitism that exists even in cities and places where there are fairly large Jewish populations. So when I came to the desert, this was a place that I had always enjoyed ever since I was a boy. I found that my husband and I realized we were able to achieve things here in retirement that we were never able to accomplish living in the city. About 3 years ago or so, 3.5 years ago, I was at a class, and our rabbi, Rabbi Lazar, was speaking in a Christian Bible class about something that had to do with the Old Testament. And he was called on to speak because he was known as an expert, as an excellent theologian. And I thought, wow, this man is someone I need to find out about. I need to follow. And I learned. And I became part of the group of people that follow Rabbi David. His whole outreach is to human beings, regardless of the labels that we adapt for ourselves. He gives us a choice and shows us the various choices that are open to us. His background is ancient history of the Middle East, and he really can say things that put things into a perspective that gives me, and I'm sure many others, the ability to understand the Bible from an historical perspective rather than just a book of words. For that, I'm very grateful. And I'm very grateful to be part of this organization. And that's my story.
Thank you, Alan. And as they say, the check's in the mail, right? Thank you for those kind words, really, to all of you. And Stephen, if you may want to send gift baskets to some of your people who will be joining us next week, so that they'll give you similar reviews. I'm joking, of course. But Magdalena, did you want to say anything today?
No, well, I'm glad of being part of this class, and I'm looking forward to it.
Okay. Well, thank you for the technical help. And Sasha, would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Sasha, married to David for almost 41 years. We met, I was born in Holland. I'm a daughter of Holocaust survivors, something that has definitely defined me growing up in Amsterdam after the war. David and me met in Israel in a settlement. We were farmers, and we built our life in Israel. For me, studying the New Testament was a new thing. I grew up Orthodox, or I grew up with a father who was totally secular and a mom who was religious. They met when they were hiding during the war and accepted each other as they were. So for me, this is, I did grow up in a home very tolerant. Holland is a very tolerant and liberal country. And we always accepted everybody in our house the way they were. But I had never studied the New Testament, and it really opened my eyes to how we're all totally interconnected. And this is very exciting for me. And of course, being together with the people from all the different groups and faiths and learning about them and getting to know them is wonderful for me. I'm really, really grateful for this opportunity.
Okay, and Gary, we've all just finished introducing ourselves, just a little bit about why we have an interest in this study group. If you'd like to say a few words, if you unmute first.
Gary, you're muted. You muted again.
Never considered anything other than being Jewish, though I was surrounded by Christian neighborhoods. I didn't live in Jewish neighborhoods. I've never been religious or observant, but I've always been a Jew. And I've always been trying to understand that. And I think part of understanding that may come from my understanding why the rest of you are what you are for whatever reason. I can't explain other than this is who I am. But that's who I am. I have found the classes that I've taken with Rabbi Lazar. I'm in Palm Springs. With Rabbi Lazar has challenged me to try to understand how people make what they do out of what they're given. We're all given some sort of sets of moral ethics, etc., we grow up with them. And the question is, what do you do with them? And why do you choose to do them? I do it because I do it. And I don't think that's enough of an answer for me. And quite frankly, I'm running out of time to find the answer. Those of us who live in Palm Springs understand that. It used to be called the waiting room for heaven. It's a lot of us retired people out here. So I'm trying to, one, learn about other religions. I'm trying to learn how other people make that interface for themselves. And I want to learn. I want to know more. So.
Thank you, Gary. Stephen, why don't you maybe collect some of these thoughts and bring us and help connect the book of the Acts of the Apostles, perhaps Luke in general. Please fill in the time for the next few minutes.
So I'm really excited. This tapestry of perspectives and experiences is very exciting to me. I think the multi-logue, the dialogue is, it's truly a way of thinking where, as I said earlier, the truth emerges between us, and it expands our mutual horizons. And the more interaction with more diverse horizons, it fuses those horizons and deepens our own individual perspectives while making us connected with the larger whole. And I think the book of Acts, or the Acts of the Apostles, it's part two, of course, of Luke, the apostle, who wrote the in our current in the New Testament Bible, it's the third gospel: Matthew, Mark, Luke, then John, and then the Acts of the Apostles. So the early folks who were putting the canon together separated Luke and Acts, right? Because so they could have all the gospels in one spot. Luke, as far as we know, and again, there's speculation among scholars, but the primary idea that I buy into is that he was a Hellenistic Jew who lived in Antioch, and as we'll soon see, and as I think it was Batya who said that the book of Acts is a Jewish document, right? I mean, it was written by Jews, but by Jews who were very different from the Hebrew-speaking Jews in Judea, let's say. And I hope we can tease out those dimensions and those levels of what it meant to be Jewish in the first century, and for those who came to believe that Jesus, the carpenter turned rabbi, was fulfillment of the longing for Messiah, but completely subverted that idea and turned it upside down. I think the movement into the ancient Mediterranean basin, right, outside of Israel, outside of Judea, and into Asia Minor, into Europe, all the way to Rome, I think we will see that this expansion into the multi-dimensional first century world with amazingly different ethnicities, ethne meaning Gentiles. And so the whole question of what it means to be Jewish and believe in Jesus was widely debated, and many divisions. And in some ways, the book of Acts becomes an apologia, a defense of this expansion out of Judea, out of, let's say, maybe and these are generalizations, but out of a Hebrew-speaking tight-knit community in Judea, after and into the known ancient world. But most scholars believe that the community of Luke that was out of Antioch were passing down these stories, of course, from the oral traditions, and then bits and pieces of text written on papyri, and slowly but surely knitting that together in the community, so that 3 generations later, let's say 80 to 110 would be the period in which the Gospel of Luke was completed and given to us in its canonical form, even though it was knit together over many years from many different sources and documents. And so it's after the destruction of the Second Temple in 70 that this document emerges, right? So it's in light of that context, and in light of the Jewish movement to Jamnia around that same time, so all of this complexity gets interwoven. And for an outsider to read the Acts of the Apostles, it would be so easy to see this immediately as an anti-Semitic document. I don't believe it is, but we have to do a lot of digging and opening up the text and the historical context to maybe develop a framework as a group that we can cobble together that hopefully will illuminate the particular texts as we go. That's kind of my hope.
Thank you. Thanks, Stephen.
And one last thing, David. I started off with this idea of dialogue, and what I mean by that is there are some approaches that identify the truth as absolute and revealed once and for all. And our job is to use our methods and our tools to get at that absolute kernel of truth. And I'm suggesting that truth is more relational than that it emerges between us. It's not that there's not truth. Truth is not just what we project onto the text. We have to do the hard work and the heavy lifting, but I do think it's dynamic and interactive and relational. That's just my own perspective. Okay, David, sorry to interrupt.
Excellent. These are great ways to begin by setting kind of ground rules. We said in the beginning of our conversation today that everything needs to be with respect. We emulate God, El Rahim, who is merciful. We need to give people the benefit of the doubt, and I think that many of us have that culture already. We continue with it. From time to time, there are questions about nomenclature. What words do we use? How do we refer to? So, for instance, in some circles, you will find the Hebrew Bible referred to as the Hebrew Bible, as opposed to the New Testament. In some circles, you find the Hebrew Bible referred to by the Hebrew acronym Tanakh, which stands for Torah, Nevi'im, Ktuvim, which means the 5 books of Moses, the prophets, which includes both the classical prophets Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, and also the historical books of Judges, of Joshua, Judges, Samuel, and Kings. And then the Ktuvim, the writing, which is the potpourri, which includes Psalms and Proverbs, wisdom literature and liturgical literature, and historical books like Ezra, Nehemiah, Nehemiah. And you'll also hear me use Hebrew names and not the English names. And if you don't know, maybe sometimes from time to time, Steve can translate, because I'm not always sure how to pronounce the English names. Just about myself, I was born in the United States, but I moved away when I was 18 and lived abroad for 40 years. Most of that time in Israel, 36 years, and then 4 years in Stockholm, Sweden. And so I've been back in this country for 7 years, but still my English, as many of our friends can tell you here, leaves much to be desired. So you have Old Testament, which was the older way of talking about the Hebrew Bible. Many people felt that if you say the Old Testament, then that means necessarily there's a New Testament. And so in some circles, people are try to be sensitive and say the New Testament and the Hebrew Bible. For me personally, if somebody says the Old Testament, I'm fine with that. but just know that out there in multicultural frameworks, very often people will say the Hebrew Bible as opposed to the Old Testament. And Tanakh is a Hebrew acronym. There's another Hebrew word that sometimes people use is Mikra, which literally means that which is written, and extremely connected to the word of the Quran as well, Mikra and Quran. So what are we looking to do here? We want to learn the text. We want to relate to, and this is something to think about until we get to our meeting in a week from now, is we want to think a little bit about what does it mean to be an apostle of. Apostle, I don't know if there's a word, apostleship, apostleness, apostolicity, whatever the word might be. What is it like? In the same way, if Jesus is God's apostle, and then Jesus has others be his apostle, is it the same relationship? Is he or she whom is sent the same as the sender? And a little bit we'll talk about next week, because that isn't the name of the book, which was given not at the time of the writing of the book, but I think decades afterwards, if not longer. We'll talk about, so what does it mean to be an apostle? Because that's going to come up in our first chapter already. What will happen is that I will send out, Laura Midbar will send out a text sheet, a PDF file, usually on Tuesday, before the group, so it gives you time to print it up. Sometimes it's just a simple text from the New Testament. I prefer to use the Revised Standard, the New Revised Standard Version. But of course, we can talk about other translations. Luckily, between Steve's expertise and my novelness to Greek language, we can sometimes go back to the word itself, or often we can. And we'd like to compare from time to time what's happening in the rabbinic world around there. Steve mentioned Jamnia, which we in Hebrew called Yavne. That's more familiar to ears like Sid, who grew up knowing that Yavne was the place where the rabbis of the Mishnah were. To look at some of that literature, which is in Hebrew and in Aramaic, and to realize, and this is my last word for today, to realize that the same multilog that we're wanting to have now was going on there as well. There was never the Pharisees and everybody else. It was never the Sadducees and everybody else. It was never there were lots and lots of groups, and we only hear about some of them. Right? There were all sorts of groups that we just don't know about, that are hinted at in Dead Sea Scrolls, in Hellenistic writings of Josephus of Philo, and we need to be very humble in how we assume what we assume about normalcy and authority 2,000 years ago in the land of Israel. Are there other further comments or questions? Please, my email is down here in the chat box, and I welcome you to hit me up with a question. I think you've received perhaps emails from info@oramidbar.org, either myself or Madalena. We can answer those. Madalena is always the person to ask the tech questions. She's enabling us, and we thank her today for being in the background. And anything else? Yeah, thanks.
David, I know we're out of time, but I'm just curious how many languages are represented around this table. I mean, I can imagine there's a lot, but we don't have time to go over it, but I'd love to, count them up and see, just because language is so to the heart of this approach, right? How we interpret, how we understand.
Well, we know we have Arabic and Hebrew and Spanish, certainly. Lots of people. Yeah, sorry, Ajit. Thanks for pointing that out. It wasn't meant to be to everybody. Yeah, in Mauritius, the language is Creole and English and various French. Yeah.
French. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dutch.
I might be able to speak several Indian languages growing up in India.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay then. So we will delight in learning new words and new languages. Shukran jazilan to everybody who is here today, and thank you very much in Arabic, and really look for the great adventure we're having.